Chapter 10. Results reported. The air was rich with the smell of tea and sweet snacks. The host of this tea party had skin as smooth as a babe's, and the room was suffused with pleasant chatter. By this description, perhaps you're picturing a tea party full of vibrant young women, but you would be wrong. Hello, young lady. Welcome home. The host of this gathering was an older man, a eunuch at that. Namely, it was the quack doctor. He was chatting away with Tianyu, popping dried jujubes into his mouth in between bits of chit-chat. Lahaku stood by the wall, keeping watch, but it must have been pretty quiet, because he had some walnuts and was discreetly cracking the shells when he had a chance. Are those our medicinal walnuts? Maomao thought, but she decided to start by greeting the physician. Thank you. I've just returned. I see it's starting to look like a real medical office around here. The office, really a converted building in Gyokuin's annex, had more shelves and cots than it had before, and even partitioning screens. Maomao had been away from the medical office for a good 10 days visiting the village, and she was glad to discover that the others appeared to have been doing real work while she was gone. We got more furniture for your room too, young lady. Don't worry, it's right where you left it. All right, thank you. 10 days earlier, her quarters had contained nothing but a cot. She hoped they had at least found her a desk and a bookshelf. Don't worry, we didn't touch any of your belongings, the quack said. I just straightened up a little. Your room did look so sad and empty. I think it should be much nicer to be in now. He sounded unusually motivated. The message Maomao got was that he'd had enough time on his hands to redecorate. The baby-faced wonder here really got into making the place feel like home, said Tianyu, no more reverent than usual. Maomao was getting a very bad feeling about this. I take this to mean there were no serious issues, she asked as she set down her baggage and started going through the drawers of the new medicine cabinet. It gladdened her heart to smell medicine that actually smelled like medicine for the first time in so long. She'd also successfully obtained the seahorse from Basin. She would have to process it later. No, not to speak of, the quack said. We just kept conducting the Moon Prince's exams. We saw a patient every once in a while, mostly just common colds. The temperature swings on the ship left some people weak. Tianyu, frustrated by the quack's relaxed, roundabout way of speaking, jumped in. Maomao was just as happy to get the story as directly as possible, so her gaze flitted between Tianyu and the medicine cabinet as she continued to check their inventory. We had one person who got stung by a scorpion, but he was fine. A guy with him treated him right after the sting, so it sounds like he wasn't going to die, even if he acted like he was. Tianyu related this like a second-hand story, probably because this field wasn't his specialty. Certainly the quack hadn't treated the man, so who had? Was it someone who knew something about scorpion venom? Do we have someone with us who knows about scorpion venom? Maomao took some swertia from a drawer, tore off a piece, and licked it. She immediately regretted it. It was cringe-inducingly bitter, although the flavor certainly did say medicine. They deal with scorpion venom all the time around here. One of the ladies at the dining hall told us how to treat it. And, I might add, wondered aloud if we were really doctors. Did you know they fry scorpions and eat them here? The quack said. What a frightening idea. His brow creased. We've got to make sure we try that. Maomao said, her morale jumping. She put the dried herbs back in the drawer. She was eager to find out if the grass she'd collected on the trip had any medicinal properties. What? No, the quack said, shivering. Judging by the two physicians, Maomao decided everything looked all right. She wanted to spend a bit more quality time with the medicine, but a nagging doubt led her to go to her room. I'm going to go put my stuff down, she said. Her room was right at the top of the stairs, and as soon as she entered, she understood why Tianyu had been snickering. What in the name of? Her formerly plain, unadorned chamber now boasted a cherry-pink canopy over the bed. It was far too cute to be bug netting, plus it was embroidered here and there. Her desk was covered with a tablecloth, also embroidered, and her chair had a Western-style, openwork lace cushion. Curtains in much the same style hung at the window, and a flower-patterned tapestry decorated the wall. She smelled incense too, a floral fragrance much too girlish for her. To top it all off, dried flowers had been scattered here and there around the room. For a second she stared in absolute silence, then she began to shake. She would have liked to tear down the decor right then and there, But the quack had trailed up behind her and was looking at her expectantly. "Ah, you're appreciating the needlework, aren't you? The merchant promised me it would be perfect for a young lady," he said. And maybe it would. But this was Maomao they were talking about. Who, age-wise, by the way, was practically an old maid. "What do you think, miss? Do you like it?" The quack came over to her, his eyes glistening with hope. Maomao made a slight choking sound. She frowned mightily, and then her shoulders slumped. Behind them, Lahaku looked on sympathetically, while Tianyu grinned. Maomao resolved to put swershia in his tea that evening. After dinner, Maomao returned to her room, feeling a little better since she'd been able to get Tianyu back good and proper. The way his face puckered when he drank the swershia tea, well, you didn't see that every day. What's he so upset about? It's medicinal. In the pleasure district, they had mixed swershia into the eyebrow black. It was reputed to prevent hair thinning. It was also effective against indigestion, diarrhea, and stomach pains, but it was so bitter that it was rarely used at the court medical office. Why did they have it with them, then? It had less to do with the gastric side of things and more to do with the hair loss prevention. People liked that part of it. We do get people who come in about hair matters once in a while. Of course, Maomao didn't give out personal information, unlike the quack, but she wasn't above taking the opportunity to ask a patient for a favor in exchange. Maomao could only sigh at the overwhelmingly girlish room. If she just put everything back the way it had been, the quack would be sad. She would have to change things a little bit at a time so he didn't notice. Maybe she would start tomorrow, though. It sounded like a lot of work right now. She was just changing into her sleepwear when she heard a knock at the door. "Come in," she said, "and a very good evening to you." Chu appeared, now dressed in an ordinary lady-in-waiting's outfit rather than the trousers she'd worn on their trip. "Our dear quack has done his exam, and now the ladies-in-waiting would like theirs." In other words, Jinshi was summoning Maomao. Chu offered her pretext without batting an eye. It's been 10 days. Maomao wondered how Jinshi's injury was doing. It should have been fine without her, as long as he wasn't scratching. "He's very interested in how things went at the farming village," Chu said. "I would have assumed you'd already filled him in," said Maomao. Between Chu and Basin, surely there wasn't much she could add. "Ah, but the Moon Prince likes to get all kinds of perspectives. Different standpoints bring different viewpoints. I suppose you're not wrong." It was a good philosophy, but in that case, Maomao thought he would be better off summoning Lahan's brother. Then again, unlike the rest of them, Maomao suspected Jinshi wouldn't be able to tolerate him. They'd probably have a whole conversation and never get anything said. Anyway, if this was a direct order, then Maomao had no choice but to go. Looked like she was going to have to change her clothes again. Chu bounced ahead of Maomao with a lamp, the light bobbing along with her, illuminating the space around them at weird angles. Creepy place, huh? Nothing like a big, old mansion in the middle of the night. Too true, Maomao thought back to her days in the rear palace, to the spooky stories and the consort who danced upon the outer wall. She'd found herself going out at night quite a bit, as a matter of fact. "You know, they say there's an apparition in this house," Chu said, holding the lantern in front of her face. "An apparition?" "Oh," was all Maomao said. Chu poked out her lower lip. "Oh, aren't you even a little scared, Miss Maomao? I've heard a lot of those kinds of stories." No point being scared now. Chu, though, still looked like Maomao had spoiled her fun. So Maomao said, "Just for my reference, what kind of apparitions are they?" "Ooh. Would you like to know? Would you like to know, Miss Maomao?" Chu's eyes began to shine. "It shows up right here," it said.